Okay, so welcome friends, welcome to AB Astrology. Today I have a very special guest. I'm watching her videos, I think from the last 1 year, I would say. I saw her on my teacher's channel, on Dr. Arjun Pai's channel. Her name is Achulaji. Welcome Achulaji, welcome to AB Astrology. And the reason,
Thank you.
yes, the reason why I invited personally Achulaji on my channel was that I have not seen many people talking about tithis, and in which I was very much interested to learn more about tithis because there are many good astrologers, many other scholars, they talk about the different aspects of astrology. But I have not seen many people talking very openly about tithis. And when it comes to tithis, when it came to tithis in my mind, only one name came to my brain, I would say, in my mind was only Achalaji. So I really wanted to learn more about tithis, and those who wanted to get more knowledge about tithis, because tithis are very important in the Pachanga, so that we can learn more about that from Achalaji. So I humbly welcome Achalaji on my channel. I hate to say my channel, I always says that, but I think mundane world, that's what we have to say. Thank you for coming, and it's such a great pleasure for me, and for all the viewers who will be watching you after this recording. Thank you for coming. So stage is all yours. Please enlighten us with what are tithis, how important the tithis are in the Pachanga, and what is the main difference? That's the key thing I would like to know between the nakshatras and the tithis. How we can differentiate between them, because many people like myself get confused sometimes. Should we follow the muhurta of nakshatras, or how to match or synchronize tithis with nakshatras? So I'm really keen and interested to learn about that, and stage is all yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Amanji. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, actually, I would just like to briefly tell you about my story with the tithis.
Yes.
Because what you just mentioned now is very close to my heart. And actually, the first thing that really attracted me to Vedic astrology were lunar phases, And imagine, my grave disappointment when I started to learn Vedic astrology and I figured out that you have almost no information available.
Yes.
So it was a big disappointment for me. There is so little information available, and you can find so little about it. In fact, if you go to tantric scriptures, they will tell you more about tithis than actual Vedic astrology scriptures.
Okay.
So it was a very interesting journey for me, because tithis themselves and lunar phases, how the logic I was following, since moon is this closest object to our earth, it must have the biggest impact. I mean, for those of us who are living close to the sea, you can see it very vividly. Whenever there's full moon, the sea levels will rise, at least in the northern hemisphere. When there is the new moon, the sea level will go down. And if you consider the fact that our entire body is made of water, it's obvious that lunar phase must affect us.
Absolutely.
And just to give you a little bit of science, there actually was a little bit of science made on that as well, like in scientific world, like how lunar phases are actually affecting us. And fascinating thing is that if you look where is the biggest amount of car accidents, that's Shukla Trayodashi, 13th day, right? Because people tend to be too fast on that day, since it's Tithi ruled by ether element. So it's statistically proved.
Wow.
Also, when it comes to all the, done, very impulsively, we tend to be very impulsive sometimes during full moon, since full moon exaggerates the water element and the emotion within us, which it rules. Right. And then if you go to the dark side a little bit, unfortunately, biggest amount of suicides is on Amavasya, the new moon.
Yes.
And it's also scientifically proven.
Yes.
Because the water element just decreases in our body then. So clearly there is some deep correlation, and since water element is not just about this physical water in our body, it affects our entire psychology as well, and how we are thinking. And this is why in Panchang mainly Tithis are presiding over water element. So we need to understand water element firstly a little bit to understand what Tithis are.
Yes.
Water element is first of all connected with our Swadhisthana chakra, which is very much connected with all our desires, our emotions, relations which we have in the world as well. And this is actually a very, very beautiful concept and thing to understand, you know, that Tithi represents emotion, because I think you asked a very beautiful question in the beginning, like the nakshatra and the Tithi, right? How they are different in their influence. So nakshatra in the Panchanga is the earth element. And we know about the nakshatras, they are presided by different gods. They have rich mythology, rich symbolism. You can spend a lifetime learning about nakshatras and it will be never enough, you know?
Yes.
But then when you think about Tithi, you don't have any of that. You have the goddess connected to each Tithi, the element, the guna, you know, you have maybe some chakras connected with that as well, maybe a mantra and a yantra, and that's all. Because you see, when it comes to Tithi, we are not supposed to understand that. We are supposed to actually feel that and experience that.
Right.
So same like nakshatra represents something very well defined, and this is why sometimes just you need to, when you look at the birth chart, it's even enough just to have a look at nakshatras and you have a very clear perspective of how the person may behave. But with Tithi, it's different because it shows you the emotional pattern that is behind it.
Right.
So I'm always saying, imagine that moon in some nakshatra, he assumes a form of some god, right? Let's say that somebody has moon in Jyeshta nakshatra, that's moon in the form of Indra.
Yes.
But now the big question is, in which mood Indra is at all in your chart? Is he angry? Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he content? How he feels actually, right, about life.
Yes.
Because even if we read about Indra, he can be very generous sometimes, he can be very greedy also. So there's always this question, so how exactly will it manifest?
Yes. Very important aspect you have discussed, yes.
Yeah, because I believe you can't answer this question without knowing Panchang. Since you will learn that that certain Tithis, they are by default having very nice resonance with some nakshatras.
Right.
While with other nakshatras, they don't resonate well. They may create some disturbing muhurta yogas actually. Some of them are very destructive. And in fact, some Tithis are even capable to make some of the nakshatras shunya or fruitless.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
So this is a big thing actually, you know, to consider, because if something like that really happens, you know, in your birth chart, and again, it's a very rare case scenario that something like you'll come across a chart like that, because every Tithi can make maybe just one nakshatra fruitless, which is not much. Right. But still you can come across charts like that, and then you are looking at a planet, which is nicely placed. I had a case like that very recently. A lady had beautifully placed Venus, you know, in the sign of Libra, in the 4th house. Everything was just very, very beautiful, you know, about this Venus in Mula Trikona. But every time the person went through Venus Antardasha, it was just extremely frustrating experience, you know, for the person.
Wow.
And person was losing everything regarding Venus in that time periods. And it happened so that she was born on such a specific, you know, lunar day, which actually makes this nakshatra fruitless. And that was Trayodashi, which is the 13th lunar day once again, and it happens to make Chitra and Swati nakshatra fruitless. So these planets which are dwelling there, they will, how to say, have the tendency to bring not so nice results, simply speaking, you know.
Right.
So this is actually a big thing, because if we consider that a Tithi has a power to make nakshatra fruitless, but no nakshatra has a power to make a Tithi fruitless. Right. So Tithi always has the final word actually to say here. Okay. And in this I can really say from my personal experience, because I used to, you know, do this daily journal, just observing the nakshatra every day, the Tithi every day, and its influence, writing, you know. I'm sure you are very much, you know this technique very well yourself, because it helps a lot, you know, to just...
From the last few years, I'm observing very closely the nakshatras, the opposite nakshatras, and I keep telling in my feed how to observe them. But I was so much interested to learn more about Tithi so that I can match the synchronicity between the Tithis and the nakshatras. That's why I really wanted you to come on my channel and educate us on this beautiful subject. And the amount of aspects which you have already mentioned till now, it's so fascinating. and how important it is to understand the mood of certain, what is the mood behind that nakshatra, that we can get to know through the tithis. Very important to know.
Yeah, it's very true, you know, because imagine that each of these nakshatras has some shakti, some power. So when moon is transiting through that nakshatra, he is sort of blessing you with that power as well. But with all the shaktis and all the powers, the thing is that if you are in a bad mood, you won't be able to use this power well anyways, you know.
Yes.
This is why sometimes, you know, we really feel, you know, that very, very agitated actually. And I have observed closely, you know, not just myself, my own inner space. I observed also other people. And really, whenever there is a disturbing muhurta yoga formed, you know, between these three factors, which is the nakshatra, the tithi, and the weekday, because these are the three main factors which can form some type of muhurta yoga. Right. You can see that not just humans are agitated. Even birds are fighting, you know. I really noticed that.
Yes.
Even dogs are barking more. So entire nature is responding to that influence, and it doesn't feel easy about it in some way. But then the question is, you know, and because I always ask myself some deep questions, you know, and I thought to myself, okay, so some tithis and some nakshatras, they just don't resonate well together. Yes. But the question is, why? Why would God create something like that, right? Why would we have bad days at all, in a sense?
Yes, and I'm always keen and interested to know the logic behind it. Instead, just blindly accept it. It's very important to know the logics.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of that as well. And you know what, I was always trying to understand. So when we are having a day, you know, which is irritating us in some way, we feel fearful, we feel scared, sad, angry, frustrated, confused, whatever the feeling or the emotion is behind that, you know, my firm belief is that there's always some lesson behind that to learn for us.
Yes.
And this is why, you know, for me, tithi were so powerful and beautiful tool, because every tithi is presided by some form of Divine Mother. And I believe, you know, firmly that if we understand this truth in itself on a very deep level, we will immediately stop classifying them as good or bad.
Right.
Because, you know, just because some tithi is more intense than the other doesn't mean it's bad tithi or it's inauspicious tithi. Right. And I really wanted to say that, you know, in this video, because I came across many people who are very, very scared because they are born on Chaturdashi Tithi and they have seen some video on YouTube which is very catastrophic, you know, in predictions. You know, right. Just because you're born on more intense Tithi doesn't mean that you're doomed. It means that there is some intensity there. Like to take Chaturdashi Tithi as an example, it's very obvious why it's intense if you understand what is the relationship between sun and moon during that exact moment.
Yes.
And Krishna Chaturdashi is the most intense because moon is right about to reach the sun, to merge with the sun in that moment. You actually cannot see the moon at all on the sky on Chaturdashi Tithi, Krishna Chaturdashi. It's combust totally, covered totally.
Okay.
And this is why it's not specifically, I would say, conductive for relations, because it can attract relations which are somehow breaking certain boundaries in a sense, or overshadowing a partner sometimes can also happen, especially when Chaturdashi Tithi happens in a lady's chart. But also what may happen is, you know, some interesting problem with commitment.
Right.
Because some of these Tithis have some interesting stories as well if we have the patience to dig deep enough into the Puranas. Like on Chaturdashi Tithi, for example, it is believed that Chandra or Soma, he actually made love with Tara.
Yes.
That's why this Tithi is very, very much connected with breaking the boundaries which you shouldn't break. That's why it's so emotional, connected with emotional overflow, because Moon, or the goddess, is just about to reach Sun, Lord Shiva. So they are just about to merge this deep intensity behind right before the union, but still the union didn't occur yet.
Right.
That's why you can frequently see also that these people can go very, very far in life, but then when it comes to commitment, they just stop, or they return from the path. So there are several aspects to that, and this is why I'm always, you know, whenever I'm looking at Tithis and when I was meditating with them, trying to understand them somehow, you know, my first concern was to meditate firstly with each of these deities, understand them, Because if you look at the Devi presiding over Chaturdashi Tithi, she's very different from the one presiding over Pratipat Tithi, the first lunar day.
Okay.
You know, the one presiding over first lunar day is beautiful, full of love, you know, smiling, having flowers and everything in her hands. Very sweet one, you know.
Right.
But when you look at Chaturdashi Tithi, she's standing, she's full of weapons, she's called Jwala Malini, garlanded with flames. So there's intensity into that. This
Right.
intensity which is right before the union. And that's why these people can be also a little bit intense sometimes in their emotions. Very, very emotional people, very frequently. So this is why, you know, I'm always trying to look at all these little factors, and this is really a, you know, like you can probably imagine, a boundless, you know, ocean of wisdom when
Exactly.
it comes to
It's a matter
Tithis.
of deep research, and I would say that it's going to give you more layers in order to dig deep in, other than the nakshatras. But Achalaji, I really wanted to ask you how you going to differentiate. Suppose if someone is having a, or on a current moon day, it is a very tikshna nakshatra, and on the other side, it's a very soft tithi. So how that combination going to come? Or the, for the another example, I would like to take, if it's a tikshna nakshatra and it's a very tikshna tithi as well. So what we can expect? It will be a maybe a very deep impact of the two combinations coming together on that particular day.
Also the same when you take Tikshna weekday and Tikshna Nakshatra, you will have a very ultra Tikshna outcome out of that.
Yes.
So it is very, very fierce and very sharp. So same when very sharp Tithi aligns with very sharp Nakshatra. So there's a lot of intensity into that sort of combinations.
Right.
So this is a very, very intense one.
Yes.
And when it's sort of opposite quality, so the example that you have given is a very good one. So if we have a very soft Tithi in its nature, but nakshatra is very, very tikshna, actually this combination can frequently result in having enhanced focus on that exact day. Because tikshna nakshatras give you very good focus in doing things, actually, and they give you some boost of energy, you know, because this aggressive energy can be also used very nicely, actually. So sometimes when you have this combination, it can be really great, actually.
But
So
not many people, but not many scholars or authors, I would say, they speak like that, because as soon as they speak about Tikshna, that's why I invited Sandeep ji on my channel to speak more on Tikshna nakshatras, because as soon as you tell them Tikshna, they're going to think that their life is doomed. And same thing, people ask me that if we are born in the Krishna Paksh side, how our life going to be? Because we are not born in the Shukla Paksh. And I keep telling them, I only give them one example. If you want to take a very good example of Krishna Paksh side, look at Pandit Sanjay Rajji. He was born on the Krishna Paksh. So does he really doomed in his life? Absolutely not. He's one of the living legends in astrology.
Yes.
So what are your inputs on that? Because Tithis make more sense to you, and we are all learning from you. So what is your insights on the Krishna Paksh and the Shukla Paksh, the people who ask me very frequently? And I have, I would say, less than a basic knowledge on Tithis, but I think you can do a better justice on that.
Yeah, actually, you know, Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha, it's like this basic duality of time that we are having. So we are having Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha. On the other side, we can also divide Tithis into the Kshina Tithis, or diminished one with diminished moon, and Purna Tithis. So we just divide them in half. So the ones which are from Shukla Ashtami to Krishna Ashtami, so on this half, on this full half, these are called Purna Tithis as well. When on the other side we have Kshina Tithis. And then we have similar concept as well in the Vedic astrology birth chart. We are having Uttarayana, we are having Dakshinayana, Devayana, Pitrayana. So this duality is always present there. But specifically in terms of Tithis is actually sort of very interesting for me, because Tithi is always formed by two luminaries. That's the sun, the soul, or Lord Shiva, and the moon, which is our receptive self, or the manas, or goddess, Devi. And if we think about both of them, so what is exactly happening during Shukla Paksha? During Shukla Paksha, the sun, which was conjunct with the moon during the new moon, is now moving away from it and starts to shine more, starts to receive more light from the sun, but it actually technically moves away from it. So technically the manas is moving away from the source because it learns how to shine its own life, its own light, how to, manifest it into the external world. So materially speaking, yes, Shukla Paksha is better. It's easier. Maybe that's the better, word for that. It's easier. Things will be more easygoing, simply speaking. You will not have that much of a challenges because the entire desire of the soul itself in this lifetime was to explore and experience this realm of Maya. Right. That's why we are saying that moon assumes a form of Lalita Tripura Sundari when it walks in. Lalita means a playful one. She wants to play in the world. She wants to explore it, to know it better through countless, experiences, to learn how to shine her own light. While in Krishna Paksha, moon assumes a form of Mother Kali. So she's a very fierce one. She's challenging us in many ways. And what is very specific about this moon, that moon, already went this 180 degrees away from the sun, and now it's returning back to it. It's going back to its source. So technically, it's heading towards the sun. And now imagine yourself, just go walk somewhere on the beach, in the park, and head straight towards the sun. You will be blinded by its light, correct?
Right.
Very much.
Yes.
It won't be necessarily very pleasant if you consider that you are doing it in the middle of summer and it's very, very hot. So it won't be necessarily a pleasant experience. So from purely material perspective, it's true, experience might be not that easy. However, keep in mind, this moon is actually eventually returning back to source.
Yes.
So it's going back and heading back to Lord Shiva.
Yes.
That's why paradoxically, you'll actually find more people on spiritual path who have Krishna Paksha moon, interestingly enough, because they are returning back. Yes. That's their motivation.
And what I think what I have seen in my analysis is people in Krishna Paksh, they are more into mantras and tantras. That's what I have seen. And it makes beautiful sense, as you have mentioned about Kalima. It totally makes sense why they are more into mantras, yantras, even tantras. It totally makes sense.
Yes. Yes, because Kalima teaches us how to, in a sense, move away from the world of all these norms, that are out there. That's why she's completely naked. She teaches us how to face the truth the way it is. And of course, the closer she gets to the sun, the more agitated she is, the more fierce forms she is assuming.
Wow.
And then on Krishna Chaturdashi, she's the most fierce. She's right close to Shiva,
Right.
And that's why it's fascinating. If you go to Brihat Parashara Pura Shastra, a Bible of Vedic astrology, they actually have an entire chapter dedicated to Chaturdashi Tithi and its remedies.
Okay.
This is how challenging they consider this Tithi, actually.
Yes.
And this is fascinating whenever you will see people coming, on a Vedic astrology consultation, and you hear them, that they have lots of problems in relations and commitment in those relationships, especially. Maybe wealth is suffering a little bit as well. Very frequently, this can be actually Chaturdashi Tithi natives, because especially it's like repeatable problem. But again, the good news is that you don't need to suffer all the time. You actually just need to understand your lesson. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about all these Devis. If you meditate on them, if you chant their mantras, even each of them has their yantra, actually. And this is a beautiful thing, because I really had people, having very deep and profound experiences with just coloring the yantra of their own goddess.
And I think you're running a workshop on that as well, right? On your website? Because I really want audience to go on your website and who are really interested to know more about the yantras, because yantras are very important and it's a very vital tool in order to enhance the energy.
Yes.
So I really want you to tell the audience as well that is there any workshops you're running on the yantras and all? Yes, please.
Actually, my husband is doing a workshop with the blessing of our Gurudev about Sri Yantra specifically, But when it comes to yantras of Tithi Devis, you can just download them when you get my ebook, so you have all of them there.
Okay.
So this is actually a very nice tool, you know, just to get connected to your goddess, firstly, the goddess of your Tithi, and actually to all the astrologers, you know, who want to learn more about Tithis.
Yes.
I recommend it on all my courses related to Tithis, that
Yes.
please spend some time, if you really want to understand the Tithi, and color these yantras on these exact days, lunar phases. Notice the difference between them, because they're very different. Some of them you will notice have very sharp shapes, you know,
Right.
and these are normally very sharp tithis as well, that are having
Yes.
these sharp shapes. While some of them are very flowering, beautiful, you know, more light, easygoing, and you will feel this energy when you actually color it.
Right.
So I always, you know, I'm really a believer of a direct experience, and it's so much more powerful than just to read about something.
Absolutely.
But especially to color your own Tithi yantra is, in my practice, I've noticed it to be one of the most profound remedies. And people had very, you know, special experiences with that, especially when a person has problems in relationship sphere of life, because Tithi is vital for that. But also in terms of wealth, when Tithi Lord is not well disposed in a chart, also wealth might not be, you know, expanding so nicely. So this will be also the sphere of life constrained if the Tithi Lord is not nicely placed. And
Right.
sometimes even health, because if there is not, if Tithi Lord is like very, very badly afflicted, it's like the water element in your body is very badly afflicted.
Right.
So you might suffer from actual dehydration, you know, your bones might be more, you know, stiff.
Wow.
And everything, because you're just not nourished enough from inside. So it's not just about emotional nourishment that Tithi stands for and your peace of mind, but also how it's actually, you know, manifests in the body itself.
Right.
And this is why when you color this yantra, you know, it's such a simple thing actually, and that everybody can do. You don't need to have any initiation into that. You know, you just need to spend a little bit of your time and do it, you know, exactly on your lunar phase.
Right.
And just chant inwardly the mantra. That's all. It's nothing very complicated. But I have seen people having, you know, like huge changes in life. Like one lady quite recently, she colored her Tithi yantra. The next day, she got a job offer and she met a partner. Same day.
Wow.
So if you have really faith in that,
Yes.
it works. Really.
Yes.
And this was the lady, just to make, you know, a statement here, who knows nothing about Hinduism. So it really works very well.
So actually, if we take an example, just for an example, for the better understanding of the viewers. So suppose if someone has Shukla Shashti as their in their pachang when they were born. And I think I remember the Devi associated with Shukla Shashti is Vajeshwari, right? Is it Vajeshwari?
That's correct.
And a planet associated with that is Venus. And we
That's
get
correct.
relationship queries all the time. So what if we take this example and suppose if this person has come with relationship issues, so what kind of yantra he can make for this particular Devi or goddess, or what kind of color, the one you were mentioning, what he can do?
So if the person came across issues like that, and specifically for Shashti Tithi and Chaturdashi Tithi natives, it's a very specific situation that would be in the birth chart, because Venus is actual Tithi Lord. So Venus, who is already by default the significator of relations and water, is additionally the Tithi Lord, which means
that's why I have taken this example. Yes.
Yeah. So there will be even more emotion. And first thing I would suggest to the person is, because it's the first remedy that comes into my mind always, and it's the most powerful, just take firstly the yantra of this specific goddess Vajreshwari, color it, connect with it. But because additionally, you know, if the Tithi Lord, who is Venus by default for such a person, is in some way suffering, we need to also help this Venus out somehow.
Yes.
And to replenish, you know, this water element somehow in the person. And there's one remedy which is actually quite simple, and this is like, once you have your yantra, you know, of your goddess, you can paint two of them actually. Have one of them for meditation and just look at it, you know, every day. That's all. Just even briefly, you can look at it. And another thing is, take this yantra and place a glass of water on it overnight and keep it there.
Okay.
And then the next day you just drink this water, because this water will be then energized specifically for you.
Yes. I never thought about that. How simple is that? Beautiful.
Yeah, this is actually the remedy that my Gurudev gave, that he said that if you just place a glass of water on the yantra, it will be energized by this power of the yantra itself.
Wow.
So it's a very simple thing and a very beautiful thing, actually.
It's a very beautiful point you have mentioned. Actually, I would also do that for my chart.
Yeah, I suggest it for everybody, because it helps you, to get more of these blessings from your goddess.
Yes.
And it is sweet, that actually, just to give you a little bit perspective from tantric, tradition, how these goddesses were perceived, because they are all called Nitya Devis, which means eternal goddesses.
Yes.
And sometimes, like I think Vishnu Dharmatara Purana actually addresses them as Kala Shaktis, or the powers of time.
Yes.
So it's a very beautiful story about them and how they emerged from this primordial goddess, Lalita Tripura Sundari. And there is explained that all the Shaktis emerged from her, which are present, in different parts of Sri Yantra as well. And it is said that these goddesses, these 15 Nitya Devis, they are always the closest to her. And they are called eternal because they never change, because they represent the 15 basic energies which are existing in the world. And these are 5 elements. So that's number 5, multiplied by 3 gunas. So that's why we have 15 Tithis and lunar phases.
Yes.
So there is one lunar phase of each element and each guna.
Right.
So this is why they are the most primordial, moods which are existing within us. And they also stand for 16 stages of consciousness that are there in total. So even from a deeper, spiritual perspective, they have actually a very profound meaning for understanding ourselves better.
Right. And one more thing, Astrology, I would like to ask you. I don't want to overwhelm the audience with too much information on this subject, because then they're going to think it's too much advanced, and especially whenever it comes to Tithis, many people just get panicked. So, but one thing I really wanted to ask you, because whenever I look at anyone's chart, I always focus on the Tithi Pravesh chart. Because we think that our birthday is coming on a specific date, but it's not on that day every year. It is when the sun and the moon, again, the combination or the relationship between the sun and the moon and the nakshatra coming in together. It can be 10 days earlier, or it can be 10 days after. So how you look into that, and how, again, I want your insight for the audience, that what importance do we get from the Tithi Pravesh chart, because it is for the 1 year, right? And I always keep a very good eye on that chart. But I really wanted to take your insights.
Well, so we have actually 2 types of Tithi Pravesh chart. We have a yearly one, which is the most important and has the biggest impact, actually, because this day is like your Vedic birthday, right? When the Tithi is aligned with the nakshatra perfectly, with the sign, actually, because sometimes even the nakshatra might not be the same if it happens after. But at least the Tithi and the sign, the Rashi, is the same.
The sign and the moon.
So this. Yes, so that is what the Tithi Pravesh is telling us. But then we have even smaller Tithi Pravesh, actually, every month. When moon is, simply speaking, having the same phase like it has in your birth chart, in same degree.
Okay, just like the nakshatras.
Yes, just like with the nakshatras, exactly, like the nakshatra return.
Right.
And it's actually very interesting to see how these 2 charts are overlapping on a monthly basis as well, because the nakshatra return is frequently telling you, once again, more things, how they will really happen in external world. They tell you actually some actual exact details. While this small, Tithi Pravesh chart, the monthly one, is actually giving you the insight into how your emotion or peace of mind and relations are going to be in the next cycle. Because sometimes you see that you might have a great month, like objectively. Everything is nice, you are prosperous, everything is expanding and beautiful because you had a beautiful nakshatra pravesh, right? Beautiful nakshatra return.
Yes.
But yet you feel extremely agitated inside and you have no clue why, right?
Yes.
because there is something that is also there, and this is why I really, how to say, understood to honor and respect Tithi more than Nakshatra, because I realized that the feeling is really more important than what objectively happens, because
Yes.
it really creates your reality.
And it makes sense, because now I'm thinking in my subconscious mind, there are many, I'm a Bharni moon, so I'm thinking there are many Bharni monthly moons I have seen where I expected that the thing's gonna go, not to go haywire, but it does. It did. So now I'm thinking Tithis has a very big role in that, why I felt that way. So it totally makes sense. Now I think we have to
Yeah.
research more deep in, other than the nakshatras, take tithis as well on the parallel side.
Yeah. It's
Beautiful.
very true, because it really gives you a whole new dimension, and especially once you have especially these three main factors, these Tithi, Vara, and Nakshatra, of course, and you learn to bring them all together and see, do they resonate well, do they resonate not so well, and what is the outcome of that. And this will give you really good perspective on things, because sometimes you just need to check the Muhurta Yoga, which was exactly in that moment when you had
Right.
either your Tithi Pravesh or Nakshatra Pravesh, and that is enough to very, precisely determine whether it's going to be at least on the positive side this month, or is it going to be a little bit more challenging. And
Right.
this is a beautiful thing, because it really tells you so much, about the chart, and can enrich so much our astrology understanding of things. Because
Right.
once you see a Tithi Lord in a chart and you understand it's a Tithi Lord, it's not just a planet anymore.
Yes.
Because it has so many more roles to play,
Layers.
actually,
Yes.
suddenly. So if you see a planet which maybe doesn't like to be in a watery Rashi, like to give you an example, let's say that I'm looking at the chart of Dvadashi Tithi native. So Dvadashi is ruled by Mercury.
Dwadashi would be the 11th.
The 12th. The
12th.
12th.
Okay.
Yeah. And so let me see that chart. And let's say that I'm seeing in the chart that Mercury is debilitated, the Tithi Lord, right? So probably our first thought will be, oh, debilitated Tithi Lord, that's so bad. But actually that's amazing. Because when Mercury becomes a Tithi Lord, you can imagine that Tithi Lord is always becoming a carrier of water element in your chart.
Wow.
Which means that he's happy in watery sign, actually.
Right.
And he can be more nourishing there.
Right.
So this is also something that we need to understand and differentiate sometimes, because lots of things can have very different impact just when you look at Tithi.
Right.
Also, some nakshatras, like you mentioned, can become fruitless. Even rashis can become fruitless just because of Tithi. So once again, if you put all these little puzzles together, I am personally a very big fan of looking into details always, because I notice that they make a difference, simply speaking.
Absolutely. And especially the things you have mentioned, it's all the thoughts I'm recalling right now, that why it did not work in this chart, why it is not working for myself as well on the monthly birthdays. It's making bang on sense, because I know in the back of my mind, I'm not giving enough emphasis on the tithis, which are very important. It's like a deep more layer of the blueprint of the chart.
Yes.
Totally makes sense. And that's why I really wanted Astrology to come on my channel, so that we can all learn about tithis other than the nakshatras, because I always try to give my 2 cents on nakshatras on my channel. But I was really much interested to know more about tithis, because I knew that they play a very big role. But this important role they had, I had no idea. So I'm glad you came on my channel, and I'm so happy to see you. And we all wish to look forward to see you more, to know about tithis and more about the Krishna Paksh and Shukla Paksh. I know time is a factor here. It's a bit late at your side, but I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you so much, Amanji. I'm also really honored that you thought of me and invited me to your channel.
No,
Thank
whenever
you.
it comes, just like I have mentioned earlier, whenever it comes to tithis, only one name comes to my mind. It is only yours. So I'm so happy to have you, and we'll see you again because again, just like I have mentioned, don't want to overwhelm the audience with too much information, because tithis are not easy to observe. That's what I have
Yes.
noticed. So I think it is a very good gist we have given to the audience to understand the relationship between the sun and the moon, which is all about tithis, and how it is so important to look as compared or as parallel to nakshatras as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Achalaji.